Welcome to Tabletop Gaming Guild. Today we'll be continuing my top 100 with number 21 through 30. And this particular set of 10 is somewhat Euro heavy. Number 30 is Empire's Age of Discovery. Formerly known as Age of Empires 3, this game is worker placements combined with area control, and I like how it divides the game into two halves. So the first half of a round is your worker placement, so you're going into the various action places, and the order in which those units are placed is the order they're going to be activated when it comes to the next phase. And a lot of those actions require you to take the worker that was placed there and put it into the colonies and basically start your area control. And for a pretty heavy game with involved rules, it's actually relatively easy to teach because of the worker placement element. You just simply have to go down the list of actions you can take and explain each one. So this is a great choice for introducing new players to heavier games. Next, we have a frequently overlooked 4X civilization builder called New Dawn. Now, unfortunately, this is part of a series called the Among the Stars series. The games in that series are really inconsistent. Some of them are alright, some of them are awful. This is one of the ones that's actually really good, and I think it suffers from the connection because people didn't know what to expect from it. If you love 4X civilization builders, we get to explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. This does it in a pretty small footprint. It is somewhat extracted, so it allows it to be done without taking up a lot of table space. It makes it very easy to get to the table and explain the game. It is also on the moderate length, about 2 hours I think to play a game of this. So you're going to be exploring through placing facilities on the map and getting bonuses for placing those based on the text on the card. But you don't just pay attention to where you're placing them, you're paying attention to how you're placing them. The orientation of those tiles actually has a significant impact as well. Overall, it's a solid civilization builder that gives me everything I want without overcomplicating or overproducing the game. We go to the other end of the spectrum with my number 28, the Downfall of Pompeii. This pulls off a strong theme without having to go extravagant with components. Most of the components are basically just little cylinders. You do have a nice little plastic volcano. This game is played in 3 acts. In the first act, you're playing cards to put tokens on the board that represents your nervous citizens retreating through their homes, not sure what's going on. And in the second act, you're getting exponentially more tokens on the board representing relatives escaping from the countryside in terror, knowing something seriously bad is about to happen. And the third act is the volcano erupts and lava is floating into the city, so you're trying to get everybody out of town. And as the lava spreads, pieces are ever engulfed by the lava or completely surrounded by it, they're thrown into the volcano. There's kind of a gleeful viciousness to this game as you throw opponents' pieces into the volcano, but it's done in a very strategic way. So it's rarely about, just hurting this one particular person. It's more about planning out how you want to move forward, what is the best strategy for you, and if that happens to hurt somebody else, that's just an added bonus. This is a great family weight game that you can play with just about anybody, and it's a blast every time. The next game is from an excellent series of games, starting with Clank, but my personal favorite in the series is Clank in Space. So, basic Clank has you diving through some catacombs, but the key to Clank is once somebody grabs a treasure, they're going to be trying to escape, and once they've fully escaped, the danger escalates, and you quickly run out of time to get out, and if you don't get to a certain point, you don't get any points at all. Clank in Space adds a little bit of modularity to the game, and change it to a space theme where instead of going through a cavern, you are trying to board a spaceship, hack through their security, steal something, then get back to the escape pods and get off the ship. And while Catacombs is supposed to add even more variety and a lot more modularity to the game, I haven't got a chance to try that one yet. So for now, at least, Clank in space is my favorite in the series. My number 26 comes from perhaps my favorite publishing company, and that's Restoration Games. The game is Downforce. Restoration Games is a super reliable company. I've enjoyed every game of theirs I've played, and they often reach my top echelons of games. And Downforce is no exception. I absolutely love this racing game, and it has a unique twist. The race is done through playing cards that have multiple cars on them, and you have to move every car on that card, even if it's not your own. So that makes for some interesting elements, because betting can be a lot of points, and you can use the cards that you have to trick people. You can kind of fool them into thinking you're actually trying to win with your car, but actually bet on somebody else. If you can pull it off where a car that nobody else thought was going to win pulls ahead at the very end, and you reveal that, oh, this wasn't my car, but I bid on it all the way, and I tricked you into thinking it was going to lose completely, and I ended up winning the game. That is an amazing feeling. Next, we have another game that was part of the series, and again, this is my favorite from the series, and that's Pandemic Legacy Season 2. While I particularly like the exploration element that this adds, is pretty minor. I think a big part of why people prefer one season over the other actually has to do with how the first month went. With a little bad luck in that first month, you can have a really tough campaign, and that can make a huge difference on how much you enjoy a particular season of Pandemic Legacy. If you haven't played Pandemic Legacy yet, it doesn't particularly matter too much what season you start with. However, I would suggest playing regular Pandemic first, simply because it teaches you the core rules, and when you go into one of the Legacy games, you don't have as much to learn. You just start learning the few little added rules as you go. That said, now that I've played the Legacy games, I have no real interest in going back to the original game again. The Legacy elements just add so much intrigue and excitement to the actual series. My number 24 is another intimidating looking game, and that's Wallenstein. Now, this may look like a historic war game, and it essentially is, but it doesn't play like what you would think. It has a really cool mechanic where every turn you have the same actions, but you only know the order half of those actions are going to be in. So everybody's going to see 5 cards flipped up to represent your 5 actions, and then 5 cards face down that are everybody's going to be doing these actions, but they don't know when. The actions are pretty simple and straightforward. Most of them are either getting money or spending money to build buildings or hire troops, but you have to gamble based on, oh, I don't have the money to hire the troops right now, but I don't know when that action's happening, so maybe I get the money before I actually have to hire the troops, maybe I don't. So there's a lot of tension in that. But beyond that, it's pretty straightforward combat where you're taking control over various areas and increasing the value of those areas by building up buildings. Of course, the more you build up the value of an area, the more it's going to be targeted by other people, and the stronger you have to build up your defenses. Largely because of the action mechanic, this can be a very stressful game, and you feel really, really good when your gambles pay off. But when it doesn't pay off, you can kind of wave that off as a little bit of bad luck. I maybe shouldn't have took that risk, but you know, you win some, you lose some. My number 23 is pretty new to me and has just been rocketing up my list, and that is Res Arcana. So this is essentially an anti-deck builder. The game starts with only 8 cards, and once a card is played, it stays down and you're never going to get any more cards. Yet it still feels like a deck builder because you're actually buying locations to be putting in front of you to build your engine. And it's really cool the way this game ramps up, and it can end super, super fast. You can either be getting a little bit of points here and there throughout the game, or get a ton of points all of a sudden at the end of the game and catch somebody off guard. It's a really tight game. It's a lot of fun. It would probably be in my top 10 if it had a little bit more content to it. I definitely feel like this needs an expansion, and there are a few expansions out there, so if I can get my hands on those expansions, this may be in my top 10 next year. My number 22 is a classic Reiner Knizia, perhaps the most popular of all of his games, and he's had a lot of games. And that is Tigress and Euphrates. Now, they did come out with Yellow and Yancy that has revised the game, though I do still prefer the classic one. Perhaps that's mainly because that's the game I played first, and I played a lot of Tigress and Euphrates, but I think it's really to do with the fact that this is so much more cutthroat. Yellow and Yancy's did tame it down a little bit. In this game, it can swing wildly where swaths of the boards are wiped out. Basically, this game is played by you're placing tiles, and every time you place a tile, the leader of that color that's attached to that tile gets a point in that color. If you connect two leaders, you start combat. And placing a single tile can actually cause multiple conflicts simultaneously that can cause large parts of the board to be wiped out, because if you lose combat, all the tiles of that color on your side go away, and they get points for every tile they destroyed. So you can get a huge chunk of points pretty quickly. However, true to Reiner Knizia, the trick is the color you have the fewest points in is actually the only color that counts. So you do have to keep a pretty balanced strategy. So yes, you might get a ton of points from a huge conflict, but it may only be in one color, and it may not even be a color that you need more points in because you're so far ahead of that color already. What else is there to say in this game? It's fun, it's tense, it is incredible. I'm actually slightly surprised with the nastiness that can actually come out of it, that we haven't actually had any little tips over this game. So for my last game on this set of 10, my number 21 is a game that every time I do a top 10 list, I feel bad that it doesn't make the 10, because it's an amazing game, and that is Concordia. Now, thematically, it's almost cliche. You're trading in the Mediterranean. How much more Euro could you get? I mean, it is also not the most visually appealing game, but the mechanics are really solid. So it actually has somewhat of a deck building element, and it has my favorite mechanic of when you play a card, it stays down and till you play the card that allows you to pick up all your cards again. It also puts in a little bit of tension because when you build a building, it becomes exponentially more expensive if other people have built there first. So you can, yes, somebody could go to where you want to go. It doesn't stop you from going there, but it does make it very expensive to build there. Overall, this is one of my favorite Euros. It's an amazing resource management game. It has such solid mechanics. It could have been a little bit more interesting a theme and more attractive, but it's absolutely worth trying despite that. So that's my 21 through 30. Some really heavy hitters here, but I hope you're just as excited as I am for the announcement of the games that just barely missed my top 10 with the number 11 through 20. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to check us out on other social media such as Instagram and Facebook, and don't forget to like and subscribe.